My name is Jack Fetters. I'm a conservation biologist here at the Xerces Society for Invertebrate Conservation, and I'm here with my colleague Emily Blevins, who's a senior conservation biologist, and she's the lead for the mussel team here at Xerces. And really excited to talk to you about freshwater mussels and why they're important. First, I want to start off with uh, giving a little background about the Xerces Society. We're a nonprofit dedicated to invertebrate conservation. We were established in around the 1970s as a science-based organization. We both conduct our own research and also rely upon the most up-to-date information to guide the conservation work that we do. If some of you have heard of Xerces in the past, which I'm sure you have, that's why you're here. Um, you tend to hear about more of our work with bumblebees and butterflies, but today we're going to talk to you about something a little different and go underwater and talk to you about freshwater mussels. Our program for freshwater mussels started in the 2000s, and we set out with this goal to aim for a world with healthy, diverse, connected, and abundant freshwater mussel populations. And so I'm excited to talk to you about that today and how Xerces plays a role and trying to strive for that goal. And one quick thing I want to mention about Xerces Society as well is we're a donor-supported organization. We currently have around 18,000 members, and we couldn't do what we do without our incredible supporters. So if you'd like to join or donate to Xerces, please do so by searching for this link that you see on your screen. And again, I just want to thank you all for being here today and giving your support of joining us on this webinar. So just going to give you an outline of what we're going to talk about today. I will be giving an overview of mollusk and how freshwater mussels fall into the world of mollusk, and where you can find them, where they live, and also why they're important. And then Emily's going to get into talking about threats that freshwater mussels are facing, along with how Xerces ties into helping with conservation for freshwater mussels in the Western US. And then we'll finish up with some great ways that all of you can help freshwater mussels. So freshwater mussels belong to the phylum Mollusca, which makes up about 5.5% of the species we know on Earth. Here we have some examples of mollusk, like an octopus, a snail, a slug, giant clams, some pea clams, and some marine mussels. And one thing that that mollusks all have in common is that they have a mantle, which for freshwater mussels is what's used to create their shell, and snails as well, and as well as marine bivalves or marine mussels. But other animals like like octopus or squid, they use the mantle to create their beaks, for crushing prey and whatnot. And so they all have this mantle, but it just serves different purposes for different types of mollusks. So with that, let's dive into talking about freshwater mussels, these marvelous mollusks, as we like to call them. So just to kind of give you all a broad overview as far as where you can find freshwater mussels in the world, there's we can find them all over the world, and there's currently 992 known species of freshwater mussels. Their worldwide biodiversity is really large in two areas of North America and East Asia. And they also can be found in on several other continents, South America and in Europe and Africa and also Australia. But like I said, there's a biodiversity really heavy in North America, which kind of brings me to the next thing that I want to talk about is about the biodiversity of freshwater mussels in North America. So like I mentioned, there's 992 species worldwide that breaks up into 6 families. And here in North America, it's like I mentioned, it's a biodiversity hotspot. We have about 307 species of freshwater mussels, so making up about 1/3 of the mussels globally on the planet, which is really exciting to have, this biodiversity just here in our backyard. And also, it's the more specifically as far as that biodiversity, it mostly occurs east of the Continental Divide, um, which is more specifically in the southeast. And so we have a lot fewer species here in the Western United States, but Emily will get into that more later as far as the specific species that we have here. But really, it just kind of goes to show the importance of conservation for these for this group of animals as a whole in North America, just given that there's 1/3 of the total species are here. So something that is really obviously very important to freshwater mussels and also to us as humans is fresh water, and it kind of is a different environment for them to work in compared to some marine animals that they benefit from it being a being able to access the water from all different angles, up, down, side to side, and whatnot. Whereas freshwater, and especially like specifically in rivers, is a one-way linear flow, and that can be a challenge to navigate for a small animal that's pretty sedentary for its entire life. And another challenge that they can face is the snow melt. Years can be dependent on, sometimes there's heavy snow and low snow, or not very much snow. So in the heavy years of snow, that can sometimes cause some disturbance and scour the river bottom. Or if there's not very much and there's minimal snow melt, we'll have really dry summers, and drought can be a really big issue. And mussels in general, mussels cannot survive out of water for long periods of time. And on the other side of that, something that's kind of unique, or not necessarily unique about rivers, but or where mussels can be found in fresh water, is it's a complex habitat that's that's ever changing. And I'll talk more about that in a little bit, how this complex habitat is where mussels really key in on where you can find them. So to kind of just give more example about how freshwater is, so important and a precious resource to not only us, but freshwater mussels. Of the total water on the globe, including the oceans, only 2.5% of that is fresh water. And then of that 2.5%, only 1.2% is surface water available for mussels. And then of that 1.2%, only 0.49% of that is rivers. So it really just shows how important and it is to conserve the fresh water that we have, not only for us but also for these animals, because it's just not much area to work with compared to the grand scheme of water on the entire planet. So where can we find mussels? They can be located in lakes and ponds, and also streams and creeks, large and small rivers, and also perennial bodies. There's been reports of mussels being found up to 10,000 feet in meadows, the Western pearl shell specifically, which Emily will talk more about the Western pearl shell later. But yeah, they can be found in kind of a variety of different places. But some important things to know about where they can't be found is that freshwater mussels can't handle brackish water or salt water of any kind. They won't survive in it. And but some other areas that they can be found, sorry, is they can survive in tidal areas in like the lower Columbia, which is kind of unique to the Pacific Northwest, which is freshwater tidal areas, but kind of unique to for freshwater mussels here in the Pacific Northwest. They can also survive in interdunal lakes. Some of these lakes that are right up to the ocean, we're just kind of separating them between the ocean is quite a bit of sand. So yeah, you can find them in a variety of different places, but really key thing here is that only in fresh water, and they, yeah, like I said, they can't survive in any marine water. But more specifically, I mentioned some of that complex habitat that freshwater mussels really key in on, and kind of broken that down into four different things here. The first is perennial flows, with minimal drought conditions or otherwise like constant flow. I mentioned this before. They can't survive out of water for long periods of time. It's lethal for them. Additionally, they like areas with stable habitats, such as with like rooted vegetation and boulders. These are very sedentary animals, and they pretty much stay in the same place a lot of their life. And so they key in on those stable areas that aren't changing because they're not moving around. And then more on that, they really like burrowing material, such as gravel and fine sands. That allows them to anchor themselves into the river bottom. Freshwater mussels have a fleshy foot that comes out of their shell, and that's what they use to anchor themselves into the river bottom. So it's really important for them to have these like finer and gravelly materials that they can wiggle into and hold themselves at the bottom of the river. Um, and then also, um, the last thing that I have here is they require a host fish to complete their life cycle. With these animals, like I said, being very sedentary, um, they use a host fish to move their larvae, known as Glaucidia, up and down this, like I mentioned, one-way linear system of a river. And and I'll talk about that more in a minute as far as how they use host fish to complete their life cycle. And so, yeah, let's dive into that. It's a really interesting concept. One of the more exciting things about freshwater mussels is how they require a host fish to complete their life cycle. And it's really a truly remarkable evolutionary concept. So what we have here is a figure developed by Monica Blanchard from DFW. And so essentially what happens is a male freshwater mussel releases its sperm into the water column, and then a female will take in the sperm to fertilize her eggs, which then develop into a larvae known as Glaucidia. This Glaucidia are released into packets that sometimes resemble other things that a host fish may be attracted to, such as like food or eggs, or sometimes even um, they'll look like even small fish in some other species. And so the fish will see this lure and think they're getting a free meal and come take a bite of it, and the mussel will then release all its Glaucidia into the host fish, and the Glaucidia then attach on to the fish's gills and scales of the fish, and they'll hang on there for several weeks and then drop off and grow into juveniles and then adults. And something that's really kind of important to know here is that during this process, the fish is not harmed. There's been some studies that have shown that fish, after being infested with Glaucidia, their immune systems spike, and therefore being less susceptible to any sort of disease that they may face. Um, and also, when they catch a ride with these fish and travel either up or down the river, it's really quite like a lottery of whether or not they're going to survive and whether or not they'll make it, because who knows where the fish is going. And hopefully they'll land in the right place with the right habitat. Like I mentioned, that there's that complex habitat that they really key in on, and so hopefully they fall into that, because that's generally where they're going to be the rest of their life if they can survive in it. So, kind of to talk more about these, interesting ways that mussels attract a host fish in order to complete their life cycle. Here we have a couple images of examples of those lures that I mentioned that can kind of resemble a fish, especially this one on the right. You can really see how it resembles the fish just like hanging around it. And yeah, so this one here. So in this next few slides, I have a few videos how of the different ways that mussels can use lures to attract host fish. And it just takes a minute to load here, but once it comes on, I can narrate it for you all. So yeah, here's a lure, and the bass takes a bite out of it, and then as soon as it takes a bite, all these Glaucidia begin to latch on to the gills and scales of the fish, and yeah, like it really shows here how they zooms in and how they latch on, and these Glaucidia are microscopic and super small, and so it's really kind of cool how they, just being so small, they're able to latch on and hang on for several weeks until they need to drop off. And here I have two more videos. So this is a little different method compared to the last one. The mussel will actually catch the fish that they're trying to infest with its Glaucidia. And like I mentioned before, the fish are not harmed in this process. It may be a little uncomfortable for them for a few minutes, but um, yeah, the mussel at this point is just infesting it with all its Glaucidia, and they're attaching on, and um, they're eventually the mussel will let go, and it'll take off and continue about its life. And yeah, so like I said, it's really not harmful to them, and kind of really quite a spectacle to see if you ever get the chance of seeing it in person. Well, one more video here. Yeah, so this is just another different method. Not exactly like the big lures or capturing like we were seeing before, but you can see these, packets that it'll spit out here in a second, and these fish will come up and take a bite. And again, doing the same thing, attaching onto the gills and scales of the fish, and but it really just shows, these really complex and different ways and of how these mussels have adapted to um, to attract a host fish. So now I'm going to switch gears a little bit and just kind of talk about why mussels are important. And the first thing that I want to mention is that how um, they have this really amazing capability to filter water. That's how they capture their food. That's how they reproduce. Like I said, that's how the females fertilize their eggs by filtering in the sperm from males. And then also, while they're filtering water, they have this ability to capture nutrients and remove pollutants from the water as well, which can benefit us. And then also, they have this ability to create habitat. A lot of times, freshwater mussels will grow in these really dense aggregates or beds of mussels where there'll be sometimes up to 10,000 of them at a time. And, having that many mussels in one place at the same time really kind of changes the stream bottom. And other animals like you see in this picture here, crayfish is benefiting from that, and able to hang out in the shell as for some cover. Um, and then also, they serve as a really good food source for mammals and other birds and some other species. Typically, the mammals that are feeding on mussels are aquatic mammals like raccoons, muskrats, and otters. Um, to feed on them, they bite into the shell and crack it open, and feed on the fleshy material on the inside. And this picture here, it's kind of shows how they do that. You can see this little mark in the middle, and that's their teeth biting into it and cracking the shell open. And it's right next to a footprint of may likely might likely be a raccoon or something like that, that just fed on it. And then the last thing I want to mention, as far as how mussels are important, to their ecosystem, is they have the ability to increase growth and production of other aquatic species, and they do this by, like I mentioned, they filter in all these nutrients, and they're not digesting everything that they're filtering in all at once, and so they'll release the nutrients that they aren't digesting into these packets, that's called pseudofeces, and these little packets of like of rich nutrients get put into the river bottom, and other species like aquatic insects can feed on this, and then creating some biodiversity around them among aquatic insects. And then the fish will benefit from this too, because with the increase of more aquatic bugs around, that's more food for the fish. And so, yeah, just as I was talking about their ability to filter water, here's a really an example of how well they are doing that. These are two tanks side by side, one with mussels, one without, and this is after 30 minutes of them sitting in the tank, and you can really see the difference. The tank with the mussels on the left, of how they've taken all that sediment and particles that were in the water column, and they bring it down to the bottom and make it available for themselves and other aquatic uh, insects around them. And then so another really important thing about freshwater mussels that sometimes gets overlooked is they've been very culturally important in the Columbia Plateau and in the Pacific Northwest region. They that have provided a first food source opportunities and also useful shell material. Here we have a picture of a midden, which is just a bunch of shells that were placed here at one point in time, and it was likely after a harvest of freshwater mussels, and they were used for either food, or the shells were used to make potential jewelry, like we see here on the top right. And Yeah, so it really just shows how the mussels have impacted humans, for a long time, and how important they've been for us, and and how they're important there for ecosystems around them as well. And so with that, I'm going to pass it over to Emily, and she's going to talk to you a little bit more about threats that mussels are facing, and give us introduction onto the species that we have here in the Western US.
Great, thank you, Jack. Let me just slide this here. All right. Yeah, so at Xerces, we work primarily on the conservation of Western North America's freshwater mussels. As Jack mentioned earlier, most of the diversity of freshwater mussels in North America is actually east of the Continental Divide. And many of those species we'll talk about are facing declines and are in peril, but there hasn't been as much attention comparatively to the fauna found in the western portion of the continent. And so that's a gap that Xerces has sought to fill to increase our understanding, our knowledge of their distribution, and their importance and their conservation status. And so I just have a map here depicting the ranges of all of the species found here in Western North America. So you can see that we have this fauna that ranges from northern Mexico into Arizona, California, Utah, Nevada, and then really all the way up into British Columbia, Alaska, and some of the other Canadian provinces. So our fauna is unique, which is really interesting. So we have many fewer species compared to the eastern portion of the continent, but they have an incredibly broad range and a wide diversity of habitats that they can be found in. So the species that we have here in the Western US include species like the Western pearl shell. So this is a incredible species that has a really long lifespan. You know, many of our aquatic macroinvertebrates live for very short periods of time, often handful of years, maybe a single year. But our Western pearl shell have been documented as living over 100 years. And so if you can imagine, again, this is a really sedentary species. So this is a mussel that dropped off of a fish into great habitat and is going to live there for the next 100 years of its life if it's fortunate. So really, really incredible long-lived animal. Jack did mention that mussels require this host fish for reproduction. And so host fish can be really specific to a certain species of mussel, or they can be a host generalist. And so in the case of the Western pearl shell, this is a species that belongs to the family Margaritiferidae, and many of those mussels are reliant on salmonids. So that can include salmon, steelhead, and trout. There's an important match between the needs of salmon in the Northwest and the needs of freshwater mussels like the Western pearl shell. This species has the widest distribution in the western portion of North America. So it can be found from sort of the central California all the way up to Alaska and east to Montana. And this is one species that we've observed that in really healthy conditions, it can have incredibly high density and abundance. So where habitat is really good and salmon populations are healthy, we can find tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands in a stretch of stream. This, for example, is a species that had been described previously as, you know, walking across the bottom of a river on top of a mussel bed. You might be wondering how we can identify freshwater mussels, because in many ways they look like kind of just a rock when you pull them out of the river. They can be these dark colors, their hard shells can be covered in algae. There aren't many identifying characteristics for our species. But in the case of the Western pearl shell, we can identify from these really neat portions of their mantle tissue that extend from the incurrent and excurrent siphons. So I'll just point out that incurrent siphon here has what are called papillae that can ornament that tissue. And so we can use that to identify the species, as well as some inner shell characteristics. We also have species like floaters. These belong to the genus Anodonta, and then there's also a species found in Alaska, the Yukon floater, that belongs to a different genus. But these are animals that have a much shorter lifespan than our Western pearl shell. They often live really only 10 to 15 years, maybe 20 years in really cold lakes in Alaska. But they have a much thinner shell. They have a more yellowish or yellow-green color. You can see that their papillae are actually quite different. In the case of the Western pearl shell, it was more fringe-like, and in the case of our floater species, they're kind of these single stemmed papillae on the incurrent siphon here, and here's the excurrent as well, which doesn't have the papillae. So these are host fish generalists, which means that they've been able to adapt to a really broad range of habitat types, including in floodplain ponds or in larger lakes. They do quite well in really soft sediments. But they can also be found in combination with Western pearl shell or our next species that we'll introduce. And so they're really quite adaptable animals. And we do have at least 3 different species. Again, with freshwater mussels, the challenge is there's not often many anatomical characteristics to help us differentiate them. So genetics is helping us better understand the number of species. And so we have at least 3 species that can be quite difficult to tell apart if you were to come across them in a stream, but they are genetically distinct. And they can use a range of species, including salmon. They can use small minnow fish that use things like dace or sculpin or stickleback. And so they do have some characteristics to identify, but generally we have to have genetic information to tell them apart. And so our third genus of freshwater mussels in the Western US is Gonidia. So Ganidia angulata is a western ridged mussel, and this is kind of that intermediate species that has a lifespan that exceeds that of the floater mussels, but doesn't quite reach that of the western pearl shell. So this is an animal that can still live many decades, up to 60 or more years. And it is potentially a host fish specialist on species of sculpin, although the species can occur in streams that don't have sculpin. So we're still trying to learn more about what host fish it may use. But this is a species that has a more limited distribution within the West. So it's typically been found in California, in Nevada, Idaho, Washington, Oregon, and into British Columbia. So it's really the smallest range. Those floaters extend across much of the range of the Western pearl shell. So Western ridge mussel is sort of our in-between species with smaller range, fewer host fish. It can be really cryptic. So as you've probably noticed in these images, these mussels can sometimes be hard to spot. They can burrow, really kind of flush with the bottom of the stream. And this species in particular, sometimes we'll only observe just those incurrent and excurrent siphons that you see here. As you can see, this species has a slightly different arrangement of papillae, so we are able to identify it by sight. And this species has suffered unfortunately, the greatest declines of our freshwater mussels in this part of the country. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. So when people are looking in streams, sometimes you'll encounter other species, and these may be confused with freshwater mussels, with our native species, particularly in places like the Columbia Basin, which is where the Xerces office is located, and where we do much of our work. We have a widespread non-native species, the Asian clam, Corbicula fluminea. And this is a species that has managed to invade every continent except Antarctica. So quite widespread. Has a very different life cycle than freshwater mussels, but is a freshwater bivalve that you could encounter. Also, many folks have heard about zebra or quagga mussels. They're in the news often. They're a highly invasive set of species from Europe that have caused significant economic damage and environmental damage here in North America. They were introduced into the Great Lakes and became widespread. And as you can see, they use a byssus similar to our marine species that allows them to affix themselves versus the foot, which Jack mentioned mussels use to burrow into the bottoms of our streams. And so that combined with, not needing host fish and the ability to create thousands and thousands of offspring for multiple years, they're a really successful invader, but quite different than our native mussels. So freshwater mussels, they are facing quite a few challenges. As I mentioned, our Western ridge mussel has faced incredible declines, and species in the eastern US have similarly declined. So more than 90 species are federally listed as threatened or endangered from the eastern US. And we know that at least 10% of our historic mussel fauna, so those 307 species, have gone extinct. And even just in the last few years, we've recognized that some of those species are gone forever. So our mussels have historically faced many challenges, and then we see many concerns today. These are pictures from recent fieldwork that Jack and I have conducted here in Oregon. On the left is just one example of a local river. I'm just going to point out here this Western ridge mussel that was left high and dry as the water levels receded, much more than typical. As Jack said, our freshwater mussels can't handle being immersed, being out of water. We've seen rivers go dry as well. So the image on the right is a river where we've been monitoring Western pearl shell and floater populations. And for 2 years in a row, we've seen that river go dry, which historically we really wouldn't have expected. So drought and climate change can have real impacts on mussels. There's emerging research showing that many species are already at their thermal tolerance limits. And so they're impacted by warming waters, but also changes in stream flow can really affect them, as well as their host fish. Because again, freshwater mussels, for them to thrive and persist and colonize new habitat, they need their host fish to be present and healthy. And so when drought and climate change affect the connections between freshwater mussels and their host fish, whether it's the timing or presence of their fish, that can be really harmful to populations. Habitat loss is another real concern, both more recent and maybe small scale, large scale, also historic. We've seen kind of a wide range of impacts from habitat loss, and when we think about habitat loss in for many species, particularly in the eastern U.S., those early extinctions were related to things like river dredging, channelization, and dam building, because that resulted in the destruction of the flowing river or the actual river bottom that they inhabit. But we also see, really concerning issues. For example, the image on the left is of a stream that's become very incised and a lot of erosion. And freshwater mussels inhabit this three-dimensional habitat in our streams. They're not just in the river bottoms, but they heavily utilize the bank habitat, and having healthy riparian vegetation with good roots that provide that microhabitat for them. That's really important. And so, in these streams that have become degraded, that three-dimensional habitat is often one of the first things to go. And so the area in which mussels can inhabit really begins to shrink. We also have concerns about things like fires and the resulting impacts on streams. So this really stark image is from a tributary to Lake Tahoe, where some folks had translocated freshwater mussels out of harm's way in another area into this stream prior to the forest fire. And so you can see these really damaging wildfires can alter stream chemistry. They can result in sedimentation. And so freshwater mussels, really can be harmed by this. There's research that's shown study populations disappear following a fire and resulting sediment plumes. And then, an interesting concept, we hear a lot about things like wetland loss, but we also, we're losing some of our stream habitat. The image on the right is an example of the Portland area and a depiction of some of those streams that have been lost to urbanization. So those streams can end up as part of a sewer system, for example. So habitat loss is a real threat to mussels, both historically and ongoing. Dams are also a real concern for freshwater mussels. I mentioned that this has led to the loss of mussel populations and entire species in the eastern U.S. But the poor water quality that can be associated with reservoirs, either exceptionally high or exceptionally low temperatures, algae blooms, scouring flows. These are all ways that how we operate dams or where we build dams can affect freshwater mussel populations. Poor water quality. So again, those algae blooms, pollution, turbid water, landslides. These are all ways that how we impact our aquatic habitat is impacting mussels. And freshwater mussels are able to filter pollutants, as Jack said, so they're performing these incredible services for our populations. But mussels are being impacted by many different factors all at once, and so some pollutants can be particularly harmful to mussels, even more so than they are to any other species that's been tested. And so while they do have the ability to help filter and clean our water, there are limits to what they're able to tolerate. One thing that I was going to mention as well, this is kind of an emerging concern, is the observation of mass mortality events. So freshwater mussel beds should persist for indefinite time, where you have a healthy, abundant mussel bed. It should reproduce. It should recruit new young animals. And so, as habitat changes, we can see some changes to those mussel beds because, of course, rivers are dynamic ecosystems. But we've seen some concerning trends in the Northwest as well as elsewhere of entire mussel beds that are lost over a really short period of time. So a thriving mussel bed will suddenly be killed in just a period of weeks or months. We also know that our actions, our direct actions to river banks and the landscape around them can affect mussels. Because again, disturbance is really challenging for a species that is sedentary and, would spend its entire life filtering quietly, even if no one was looking. And so there are many efforts to do habitat restoration in streams that often requires a bit of a heavy hand, things like dewatering those streams so that we can dredge or shape or plant banks, change water courses, things like replacing undersized culverts or bridges. And these are all beneficial for streams ultimately, but we need to consider freshwater mussels when we plan these kinds of projects because they can have impacts on mussel beds. Those animals don't swim away when something's wrong. They're really subject to the impacts. And so I'll also just mention, invasive species and the management of those invasive species is a concern for freshwater mussels. So you may have heard recently of detection of quagga mussels in Idaho in the Snake River. Many of the water bodies within these species ranges have not been impacted by quagga or zebra mussels to the extent that they have in eastern US. And so there are really strong efforts to ensure that we keep our waterways free from those invasive species. But this is really a challenge for us all to ensure that we're not moving invasive species from one location to another, usually via boats or fishing equipment. And so when we have to treat for these invasive species, they're shellfish as well. And so often our attempts to protect our ecosystems can result in impacting the native bivalves. So we have to think really carefully about how we're going to manage these ecosystems to ensure that freshwater mussels are protected, even as we're trying to protect whole ecosystems. And this is it's so important because, Jack talked about all the different ways that freshwater mussels are benefiting our aquatic ecosystems. When we lose our mussel beds, when you lose 10,000 animals or 100,000 animals that are filtering and thriving, you lose those benefits. And those places are not as healthy and not as resilient to things like climate change or habitat change. Or, these animals are really important to our healthy fish populations, to those aquatic macroinvertebrates, to water quality. And so it's so important that we conserve these animals, to ensure that we have a healthy ecosystem overall. They're really a keystone species. So Xerces has developed our freshwater mussel conservation program to help address what we've found are some of the biggest issues that we can tackle. Part of that has really been to increase our trainings, education, and technical assistance. So producing information about our freshwater mussels, teaching people how to look for them, how to study and monitor them, and then also how to protect them when doing things like habitat restoration. So that's been a really key part of our work. Because these mass mortality events, we don't really understand the causes of those events. We've been working with collaborators to conduct studies investigating viruses and bacteria by collecting the hemolymph, which is mussel blood essentially, to look for potential disease-causing agents. And we've conducted really broad-scale basin-wide surveys in places like, for example, this map of the Chehalis River in Southwest Washington. We've observed an ongoing multi-year mass mortality event. And so we've really worked to track that, monitor populations, and collect health information. Monitoring mussels, as I said, is key. We know so little about population dynamics, about what a healthy mussel bed, how many mussels there should be, what their survival rates should be, how they're affected by all of these different factors we've mentioned. And so we've worked with partners to develop methods for studying and monitoring mussels. That includes really interesting projects like pit tagging mussels. So if you imagine a microchip that you put in your dog, for example, that is a unique code that can get scanned and who that animal is. We've done that with freshwater mussels. So we've collected them, pit tagged them, covered in marine epoxy, and then we go back and try to track that animal over time. So really exciting to work with others on projects to do a better job of monitoring mussels. So those are some of the examples of work that Xerces has done to address mussel declines. But of course, rivers don't belong to a single person. They're a resource that we all use, that we all benefit from. And so, really it's important that we all contribute to things like conservation efforts. And so for freshwater mussels in particular, we have the ability to affect how much water is used and how clean it is, what shoreline habitat is like, where we build our roads, and how we manage our resources. So many of the things that anyone could do to help protect freshwater mussels would be if you have or manage lakefront or riverfront habitat, or have a creek running through your backyard. That's potential mussel habitat, and preserving the more natural riparian habitat, or protecting the banks and bottoms. Those are ways that a landowner, for example, could help protect freshwater mussels. Habitat restoration is also a really great way that we can improve degraded habitat quality. And so there are many organizations out there, watershed councils, river keepers, land trusts, that are all working to improve those degraded conditions. So any way that you can support your local watershed council, really has the potential to benefit mussels. And just thinking, really about how much water you're using and what's ending up in it. If we can reduce our footprint with water use and water quality, that will certainly benefit freshwater mussels directly. So with that, just want to mention that this is work that Xerces could never do alone, that we really benefit from many collaborators, funders, supporters, our partners. So just want to acknowledge the many other folks who have helped us to improve and support our own efforts in freshwater mussel conservation. So, and thank you all for attending this presentation. We'd love to answer any questions you may have.
All right, thank you, Emily and Jack. That was so interesting. It's nice to learn about the invertebrates we work with that are not insects, because they're just as important. So yeah, thank you so much. So we do have a few questions. Again, if folks have questions, please use the Q&A icon. Okay, the first question, and I asked the same one in the podcast, and I thought it was a good one. Are there any certain types of fish that can be, are there only certain types of fish that can be hosts for the Glaucidia?
Yeah, I can answer that. And Emily spoke on this a little bit when she was describing, the freshwater mussel species that we have in the Western U.S. But it happens in the Eastern U.S. as well with freshwater mussels. There are some species that there's like maybe it's even more specific, where only one or two species of fish that they will key in on, that's required for them to use as their host fish. And these are host fish specialists. So Yeah, it definitely happens. And like Emily mentioned with the floaters, there's some that are more generalists and that can use a couple different species. And but yeah, certainly a thing.
Yeah, and I'll just jump into, one of the questions we get, particularly here in the Northwest, is whether lamprey serve as host fish for mussels. And they're such a wild fish. They're so different from, a salmon, for example. And as far as we know, a species like lamprey can't serve as a host fish. There's some mismatch between the immune system and the mussel. So it's a really long evolutionary relationship between these species, which is really cool.
Yeah, and I'll throw in one more thing. Besides fish, there's actually one species of mussel in the eastern U.S. that uses a salamander as its host, which is very unique. It's the only mussel that does that. So really wild.
Yeah, that's so interesting. All right, so Ron is wondering, very specific question, do eastern freshwater mussels typically have visible papillae on and current siphon?
Well, I can speak to the Western mussel species. I'll let Jack, he's our expert on Eastern species here, but our Western, it is really typically quite visible. Often when we conduct our snorkel surveys, which is the main way that we survey for mussels, face down, snorkel mask, in the water, trying to get really close up, we can identify the species without handling. And so yeah, so our Western species, if you touch them, or sometimes a shadow going across or some kind of disturbance, they may close up temporarily, and you wouldn't be able to see that.
Yeah, and as far as the eastern species, like I mentioned, there's quite a bit more biodiversity going on east of the Continental Divide. So that can make that a little more challenging when trying to identify between different species, with there just being so many more. So where there's kind of a lot of overlap in what the papillae look like between different species. So you really have to pull them out and handle them a little bit more and look at some of the different features on their shell, and things like that to identify them.
Great, thank you. All right, I like this question. How do you recommend protecting the stream banks and bottoms of backyard creeks?
Yeah, I can talk about that. One of the main issues that we see along waterways is when people clear the riparian vegetation. So it's certainly nice. I mean, Jack and I also appreciate it when it's much easier to get to the creek. We often have to fight blackberry or rose for whatever reason. Wild rose seems to love to live next to the places we need to access. So we often get pretty scratched up. But that vegetation is so important to holding the bank together. And in the first image in our presentation, you could see this really nice root from a riparian plant that's kind of anchoring the pebbles and sand in place. And maintaining that kind of vegetation is so important. We just so commonly see that rooted vegetation along the banks, or in stream can be really important for mussels, in part because, an adult mussel does have that nice foot that they can extend from the shell and really burrow in. And sometimes it's easier for them to maintain their position. But as Jack said, when they drop off of a fish, they're microscopic. They're as small as a grain of sand. And so it's so easy for something like that to just get washed away if it were to fall in, bare sand without those roots holding the substrate in place. So maintaining that kind of vegetation, particularly along the banks, is incredibly valuable for mussels. And a big thing in habitat restoration in the Northwest is placing stabilizing structures, whether it's boulders or large trees, or encouraging beavers to establish in places, because they also serve that function of holding sediment in place, so that an animal that wants to be in one spot its whole life is able to pretty much stay in that spot. So, having those features in your creeks and not removing them, can really benefit mussels.
All right, next question. You answered this a little bit in a question before, but you can go into it a little bit more. Linda is wondering what kind of gear you wear to go into the river to study these mussels.
Yeah, I guess I could answer that one. here in the Western U.S., the water is typically pretty cold all year round. So we use dry suits and snorkel goggles and hoods and gloves and wading boots to kind of romp around the rivers to look for them.
Yeah, and it is kind of funny. Even on 100-degree day, you'll see us wearing a fleece onesie tucked into a big dry suit with all of this gear on because 50-degree water is very cold.
Yeah.
Definitely. I wonder if this will encourage people to go out and snorkel in the rivers to try to find mussels. All right. Next question. This specifically was asked by Jerry, referring to stormwater ponds that they sometimes use chemicals to control algae. What might this do to the mussels?
Well, I can say first, I believe with algae, a lot of times that's a copper-based chemical, and copper is especially harmful to freshwater mussels. And so, application of something that is going to kill algae or kill mollusks, because people also apply it for a molluscicide, that can really impact mussels. So yeah, adding any kind of heavy metal to waterways is particularly harmful for them.
Yeah, and I'll just add, not only is it like directly harmful to the mussels themselves, but it's eliminating a lot of their food source, which will indirectly harm them as well.
Yeah, we didn't talk about it too much, but mussels, they're filtering food, and a lot of what they eat is algae.
Hmm.
Ah, okay, Emily, I see that you've tagged this question from Jane. Why microtrip mussels when they are not generally mobile species? How are they moving when there is a need, or how are they moving that there is a need to track them?
Yeah, this is a great question. Yes, why would you need to tag something that stays in place? Well, so we do these projects where we're pit tagging them because these are often in places where we're studying some dynamic change to the stream. And so we expect that they might be moved kind of against their will. And so in the case of the picture that I showed previously, that's a project that we are collaborating with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. We pit tagged those mussels below a site where a dam is being removed. And so our interest is in being able to refine that mussel after the dam is removed to see if it survived and to see if it was moved. And, that's just basic information that we don't have. And so it's part of kind of a really specific study. But we also use things like shellfish tags. Sometimes it's just nice to know that you're seeing the same mussel versus one that maybe replaced the other one after it died. So really helpful for being sure you're looking at the right animal.
Yeah, that was a really good question.
Yeah.
I just imagine the mussel with its foot out trying to like move.
Yeah. And actually, I mean, that's a cool thing. We didn't include any pictures here, but mussels, they can move in response to things like if the stream is drying, sometimes they'll try to crawl toward the water just to save themselves. And so sometimes you'll actually see a little trail, like a little furrow in the bottom of the stream that the mussel has kind of dug as it's very, very slowly crawled from one spot to another.
A little mussel trail.
Mussel trail. Yeah, it's pretty neat to see. Yeah.
I love it. All right, Eben, I hope I'm saying that correctly, has a specific question. They live in Northeast Minnesota and they are on a small 90-acre lake. And they've noticed some small areas, maybe 30 feet in diameter, with possibly 200 or more dead mussels. Is there anyone that you could suggest that they contact in their region who might be able to help identify the problem?
I know that Minnesota DNR, they have a really big mussel program there where they do a lot of mussel research and also mussel propagation, which we didn't really talk to you all about that much, but essentially what that is if there's populations that are decreasing, they'll augment or change these populations by raising mussels within like a hatchery like you would with fish and then release them. But yeah, Minnesota DNR, they have a really big program there where they do a lot of work with mussels, and you could probably reach out to your local DNR biologists, and they could send you to some contacts to talk to.
Awesome. And that's Department of Natural Resources.
Yes, sorry.
Yeah, I think most people probably know, but just in case.
Yeah.
Jacob had a really good question. How have we been able to age mussels to 100+ years old?
Yeah. Mussels, how they grow, it's kind of similar like aging like a tree. So if you were to, cut cut a tree down and you see all the rings inside and you count all those rings, and that kind of gives you an idea of how many years have passed. Mussels are the same way. It's hard to tell just by looking directly at a shell, but you can see the rings and you can kind of get an idea, but it's not quite as accurate. The more accurate way of doing it is they'll take a cutting of a shell and then place that under a microscope, and then you can really see those rings on like a cross cutting section of a shell. And yeah, you count the rings, and it gives you an idea of how old they are.
Yeah, and a cool thing, with a tree, we often use tree rings. We look at the width of those rings to determine whether it was a, really wet year, a good growing year, or a less good year. Maybe it was colder. We can reconstruct climate, and we see that with mussel shells as well. You can kind of reconstruct the hydrology of the river. So in at least in our northwestern rivers, in years where there's more discharge, where there's higher river flow, they'll have smaller growth rings, and in years where the stream flow is lower, there'll be larger gaps between the rings. And so it's kind of neat. You could actually reconstruct like, oh, this was a good flow year, this was a low flow year, to look at those.
That's so interesting. I was wondering about that. Mussels aren't that large to have 100 rings and count them with the naked eye seems difficult. So thank you for explaining that. Laura has a question about identification. So are there differences in shells like a fingerprint, or in a more general way, a way to tell mussels apart by the shell only?
Not individual mussels. The
Yeah.
chemistry might, but well, they're all together. So yeah.
Yeah, I think really just being able to tell between species, but not individuals within that species. It's yeah.
Although, just getting back to these animals that love to live in the same place their whole lives, we mentioned they do maybe move a little bit, but sometimes you get that one weird mussel that grew around a log or around a rock. And so actually there's like a divot in the shell. So you could tell that one apart from others. But that's always just such a good reminder that these are animals that live, they thrive in one place their whole life, that they're actually going to grow around the rock that they're next to. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, and like in the eastern US, how I mentioned, there's quite a few different species, so you have to use some of those differences in shells to identify them, and often you'll run across one that grew up next to a rock, and that makes it even more challenging to identify because the shape of the shell looks a little bit different, and yeah, sometimes you just have to do the best you can.
Great, thank you. Moa has a good question. Has the fire season in the Northwest affected mussels?
That is such a good question, because we don't have anyone researching that, and it's becoming really important to understand, because these fires are at a massive scale. They're clearly affecting the stream chemistry, the runoff into streams. Like I said, we have studies that, or at least a study that has shown a mussel bed that was lost in California after there was a wildfire, and then a debris flow that followed, when the rains hit. And so we know that it can alter those beds directly, because freshwater mussels, they're burrowed into the stream bottom, but they need to be able to filter the water. And so when they get covered by mud or soil, that gets washed into the stream, that can smother them, and they may not be able to burrow up through that. And so we know that when there's kind of a direct impact like that, that mussels can be killed. But we need people studying this issue, because it's really an emerging concern, and the potential for fire to affect mussels is quite large. So hopefully someone will be able to do that work.
Yeah, definitely. That was a good question. It's not something you often think about
Right.
with water. All right, I think this is probably a question for Jack, but are there any common and abundant species in the eastern US of mussel and their host fish?
Yeah, a few species that are pretty common and are is one is like the painted creek shell, and they often will use some darter species, which is a small fish um, that occurs in the eastern U.S. as their host fish. And like I mentioned, the biodiversity is really large in the eastern U.S., so it sometimes depends on the area of what species of mussels are abundant there. Like if you're in like the Mississippi Basin, like in Minnesota, like we talked about, you'll find some different species there than you would find in like Alabama or something like that. So it really kind of depends on where you're at as far as which mussels are abundant there. But yeah, so.
Thank you, Jack. Another question about fish. Jerry has a good question. If there are no fish, does that eliminate the habitat for mussels?
Yeah, I can answer that one too. Yeah, generally, if the fish are gone, then they can't complete their life cycle. It's yeah, they require the host fish to complete their life cycle. It's really something that they depend on in order to thrive. Like I did mention the use of propagation as a tool um, for helping mussel populations, and that's something that some researchers have done in the past. Is if there's a lack of the host fish there, they can raise them within hatchery, release them until they're able to get those fish populations back up for you know to allow those mussels to use them as their host fish.
Yeah, and another interesting aspect of that is we can find mussel beds in rivers that are not recruiting those younger age classes. And so that could be because the host fish is no longer there. So you'll still find the adult mussel, the 70-year-old Western pearl shell could still be in a stream, even if the host fish has been eliminated. But you're not going to see that reproduction, and that's a real concern. We have documented populations in California and in Oregon where there is no recruitment, where you might be missing 30 years of reproduction. That means that no new baby mussels have appeared in 3 decades. And we don't generally know the reason why. And so it's kind of disturbing if you find a bed of mussels and no young ones, something's wrong. And they could persist for a while before eventually the population, ages out.
Hmm. Interesting. All right, one last question here from Pamela. Invasive zebra mussels are everywhere in Minnesota. Are they also a threat nationwide?
Yeah, I can do this one. So yeah, zebra mussels were introduced, as I said, into the Great Lakes, and they've had a huge impact on freshwater mussels in that part of the country. There was a real decline in our native mussel populations for quite a while after that invasion, and some of those populations have rebounded and things have stabilized a bit, but we've seen over time that expansion of zebra mussels from that region into other waterways, and generally that's because the veligers, which is the larval stage of a zebra mussel compared to the Glochidia of a native freshwater mussel, those veligers are able to be dried out, and so they can be transported kind of attached to boats or in puddles of water in boats. So for example, Lake Mead has a zebra quagga mussel issue, and that's because people have taken boats from areas that are infested with zebra mussels and transported those larvae to new places, and that's probably what happened in Idaho as well. And so we do have in the Northwest we have waterways that don't have zebra mussels, but there's this constant surveillance to make sure that we're catching boats at the border to make sure that they're not getting into our rivers. And so those boat check stations are really important. Every year, multiple boats have to be decontaminated at our borders to ensure that those infested vessels don't make it into our rivers.
Okay, we do actually have one more question, if that's okay, that just came in. similar to the question that Moa had, if prescribed just fire or prescribed fire in the eastern half of the US also have effects on mussel populations.
So I'll speak to prescribed fire because that's a really important thing, particularly out here. But generally, if it's prescribed fire, these are fires that burn at a low intensity. They tend to reduce saplings or excessive undergrowth. They tend not to burn really hot. They tend not to mineralize the soil, sterilize the soil. And so prescribed fire, definitely, we wouldn't expect there to be a large scale impact on mussel beds because we wouldn't expect kind of those resultant negative impacts to the stream following it. The real issue is kind of the scale and the amount of destruction really that many of the wildfires today are causing because they are removing kind of the entire forest, including all of the undergrowth that would maybe hold that soil in place. So it's really these intensive, large wildfires that are the concern.
All right. Well, thank you both so much for joining us today. That was such a great presentation. Thank you to our audience for joining us. This will be on our YouTube channel. If you want to share it, we'll have that up in the next couple of days. But yeah, thank you so much, Emily and Jack.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks.